In today's video, we're going to go over repacking some wheel bearings, and I'm also going to inspect my brakes. This is an often forgot about task. It's recommended to do once a year, every 12,000 miles. Everyone does it at their own schedule. I'll leave that up to you. But we're going to show how we do this on our trailer. First thing I'm going to do is lift up one of our tires, and I'm going to pull the breakaway cable, and we're going to see if the brake stops the tire from spinning. And the tire didn't stop. Now we're going to repeat the test on the back tire on this side, see if we get different results.
That one worked.
So something is not right with this one. This one is still working, but I'm going to go ahead and I've ordered 4 new brake assemblies, and we're going to change them out. Unfortunately, I have Dexter 3,000 pound axles, so parts are a little harder to find. They're a little uncommon. The brake assemblies were about 3 times the cost. I could have got all of them on Amazon for $150 if I had a different size axle. Unfortunately, I paid over $100 for each one. Unfortunately, the cost of doing business from having our trailer. The first step of this job is change your clothes. You're going to make a mess. You're going to have grease everywhere. You're going to brake dust everywhere. Definitely don't wear your Sunday best. So here, we've got some gloves. Almost every RVer carries gloves with them for dumping their black tank. So we're going to use some gloves. Got a 4-way to take the tire off, bottle jack to lift up the wheel. I've got a dead blow hammer here, a pair of channel locks, a pair of wire strippers, a pair of needle nose pliers, a seal puller. We've got a couple of wrenches to take the brake assembly off and put the new one on. A can of brake parts cleaner. I've got my new seal and a block of wood to install that. I've also got a tube of wheel bearing grease. This is a bearing packer, and here is a grease gun. And then here I have, this is the old assembly that I've already removed from one of the other tires. And as you can see, it's a giant mess. So on these Dexter axles, this will give you a part number right here. If you look at this, it'll tell you what parts you need. Or you can also look on your axle itself. There should be a tag. You can also measure your brake shoes width and the diameter of your hub, and that'll tell you what size you need. So this is the new one. Obviously, it looks much better. They are not universal. There are right-hand side and left-hand sides. So this happens to be a left-hand side, which is what we're doing, so that's convenient. And here's the new part, and it also comes with the new nuts to install, and all the parts we should need. Now's also a good time to inspect your tire, see if there's anything wrong, see if you have any punctures. We like to collect nails, screws, and bolts in ours. This one looks okay. Now the first thing we need to do is get this little cap off. This is just a little dust cap. If you use some kind of a rubber mallet, it won't damage it and you can reuse it. If you're getting a new one, I guess do whatever you want to do. You just hit it down on an angle, and you can see it come away. And just like that, there it is. Now we can see inside here, and we can take the hub off here. A lot of people's axles have a cotter pin, but I actually have this keeper here that's going to hold everything in place, and we will take that off now. So I'm going to take this keeper off. Now there is a nut here. This is what's holding the hub in place on the spindle. Now you can start to remove the hub. There's a washer in here that will come out with it. It's not a washer that will come out. Apparently this side doesn't get a washer. There is our hub assembly. And we will be taking off this whole brake assembly here and replacing it with a new one. This is also a good time to inspect your spindle. You want to check for any wear, and basically you want to check for any spots that have been extremely hot, and they will show up a purple color. And this one seems okay. You also want to inspect the inside of your hub and look for any pitting. This was super shiny. That would be a bad sign. That would mean that your magnet has been hitting there. There's a little bit of glazing, but for our purpose, I believe they're going to be okay to reuse. So also inside the hub, when you go to remove it, you're going to get a bearing. This is the smaller bearing, and my washer is actually attached to it. So we'll have to separate them. There we go. So it was a little surprising to have them connected, but that's okay. You also want to do the same thing for your bearings. You want to inspect them, check for any spots that have been hot, and you're going to clean them up because we're going to add new grease, but that's going to come in the future. Now, the way this works is your brake controller will send an electrical signal back here, and it'll magnetize, and this is supposed to stick. This is obviously magnetic. This is a magnet. Now there's no signal back here because the breakaway cable is still in, or if you had someone in your vehicle that you were hooked up, you could simply hit the brakes. But so we're going to test and see how this magnet works by pulling the breakaway cable. So this here magnet is definitely wore right out. Nothing sticks at all. So it's definitely time to replace some parts here. You don't have to replace the whole thing. You can replace springs and this and that and your shoes and your magnet all separately, but I found it much easier to just order a whole kit, replace everything all at once, and then you know what you have. Everything is all nice and new. Might have found out what our issue was, or this is pretty obvious what our issue was. This was already disconnected. So there's just two wires that attach to this brake assembly back here and then connect to your brake wires through the axle. And this was already severed. So if the wire is broke, we're never going to get any brakes. However, I'm still going to go ahead and change all the stuff. We have over 50-some thousand miles of towing with these brakes. There's nothing wrong with replacing them. Safety first. Now there are two wires here. One is power, one is ground. From everything that I've seen, it doesn't matter which is which. It can be hooked up either way. So I'm just going to clip my remaining wire here. And now I'll have to rewire this once the new brake assembly is installed. And now back here, there are just 4 bolts. Bolts are through here, the nuts are on the back here that are holding this on. So I'm going to simply undo those 4 bolts, and this whole assembly will come right off the spindle. Okay, now our 4 bolts are out. We've cut our wire, so this guy just slides right out. Now we've got a new one to bolt right back in there. Looks like since ours was made, there is a upgrade. There's 2 springs here, and I only get one on the new one, but I have triple checked they are the correct ones. The one that I ordered for the right matches. I could see the tag on the old one. This one is pretty worn, weathered underneath a lot of brake dust, but I'm sure this is the right one. I don't have any issue with that. This new one, this comes, here are the wires. There's a little clip for you to clip your wires through there. These 4 bolts are going to go through this flange here, and then it comes with a new set of nuts to put on, and you're back in business. Unfortunately, there's not enough room to get a socket in here. I've already tried, so they're just going to get turned on very slowly. Like with tightening all things, I would recommend that you tighten them all somewhat evenly. I can't imagine tightening up one side super tight and having the other side out and then trying to snug that up. It's going to be good, just like putting on a tire. Just try to do each of them somewhat near equally and go around until they're all snug. Now that this is all installed, the only thing left to do for this is going to be to install these 2 wires. We're going to come back to that, and now we're going to focus on the wheel bearings themselves. First thing we're going to do is clean up the spindle. You want as little dirt and contamination as possible in there, ideally none. So one thing you're going to want to check is this is where your sealing surface is going to be. This cavity is going to be full of grease. If you have a nick or spur here or something, your grease is going to end up on your brakes, and you don't want grease on your brakes. Lubricated brakes aren't going to stop very well. So my grease gun is going to go right on here, and now I'm going to put grease in here. It's going to come out this hole right here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put new grease through here until new grease comes out, because I can see this, and I don't want any of this old grease in here. And then we're going to do this again, but in a later step. Now we're getting clean grease. So now that is as far as we need to go right there. What's going to happen is this is all going to be reassembled. I'm going to be putting grease in there. It's going to come out this hole, but I'm not going to be able to see it. So I don't want any of that old grease in there. So inside this hub, there is another bearing, and I cannot get to it because there is this seal here. This is right here. And so I need to pull this seal. That's where the seal puller comes in. This is a specialized tool made for this. It's like $8. Sometimes people will use a hammer. Basically, just so there's our old seal. These are basically not reusable. As you can see, I pried on it pretty hard. They're also like $3 or $4 a piece. Just do yourself a favor, get a new seal. Now here is that other bearing that I was speaking of. So we're going to clean these up. We're going to clean all of the grease out of the inside of this hub in here, and then we're going to repack this, and we'll show you how to do that. Brake cleaner and paper towels are your friend here. I'll get this pretty clean. Yes, that can's empty. So now I have that all clean as I'm going to be able to get it. And we're going to set it aside for now because we're done with this. So here is our inner bearing. I'm going to clean all this grease off of here. And then we're going to repack this. And then we can put this back in our hub and put our seal on. As you can see, this is why I'm wearing gloves. I still have grease everywhere, but I've switched to disposable gloves for this portion of the task. This makes a mess. So I have this all pretty clean. You want to inspect it also. Any damage, anything obvious, any spots where it got hot. Again, I believe they should look purple. Now we're going to push this old grease out of there and put some new grease in with our bearing packer. So here's our bearing packer. The grease goes down underneath. You fill it up with an inch or two of grease, and then what you do is you push it down. Your bearing is going to sit here where these holes are, and then you're going to thread this down onto your bearing, and when you push down, it's going to push all the grease through your bearing until you see new grease come out, and then you're all packed. So I might be a little overkill here. In some of the videos I had watched, everyone said get as much of the oil grease out as possible. So as you can see, this is still a little bit dark. Some of that old grease is still in there. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is clean that off. And then once I clean it off, I'm going to go ahead and pack it again. And I just want fresh grease coming out of there. That old grease is just old. It's been used. We don't know its properties anymore. So we just want to make sure we got new good stuff in there. That way everything is just clean and ready to go. I think one more time will get us there. Just squeeze some new grease into this bearing. And then it should be ready for install. Now inside your hub where this bearing sits, we're going to put some grease in just so it sits in there. You just don't want that to be dry. The bearing is going to sit inside that hub. Make sure you put it in the right way. This one is really obvious if you have it in the wrong way. It's going to stick way out and just not fit in there at all. So once it's down in all the way, you can see that it's in there. We want to make sure there's no dirt, debris, grass, since I'm right next to my lawn, any debris in there or anything. Clean that out. We've got our new seal ready to install that. So a lot of people will use a block of wood, and that's what I'm going to use. If you use a hammer, you can deform the seal. You don't want that. So I'm just going to use this block of wood and a rubber hammer, and I'm going to pound it down. And once it's down all the way, I should be good to go. Bang, bang, bang. Bang, 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 bang. Bang, bang. So my seal is nice and down all the way around. It's not raised on any one side or anything. I want to make sure we're nice and good. So now I'm just going to clean up all the other parts that need to be cleaned up that we removed already. I've got a washer, the other bearing, the keeper, a cap. So basically all this stuff, you just want to get all that old grease off. Paper towels and some kind of parts cleaner are your friend. You just want to get all that stuff out. As I said, it's a contaminant in your new grease. Going through all the effort to repack these bearings, there's no reason to leave all that old grease behind. Now I've got our other bearing that we're going to pack. Same thing here, same procedure. Just thread our bearing packer down with the bearing inside. Then we're just going to push down, and the grease is going to come out. Same thing here. We have a whole bunch of the other grease that's already been used. So I'm going to clean all that off and then get some new grease through here. I just don't want any of that dirty, dark grease in there. Uh, it's already been used and worn out, so let's just get some fresh stuff in there. I have one set of my wires twisted together. I couldn't figure out why in the world they were sparking. When your breakaway cable is out, these wires will spark when you touch them together. That was a new learning. I have some heat shrink to go on. I'm going to solder them together. Unfortunately, I am not going to show you my soldering because I'm going to look like a 6-year-old doing it. I have zero abilities, and that does not need to go on YouTube. Some things don't make the cut. As I said, I have zero skills at soldering. This is my flux that's doing its thing here. This is supposed to flow like water. It never does for me. I have a cheap, terrible soldering iron that's probably older than the coal is. So I have my wires connected, soldered. I'm not very happy with my solder and heat shrink jobs here. I just wrapped them in electrical tape also to keep them extra, whatever help they can get. They should be okay. So now that we're wired up, we're ready to reassemble, put our hub on and put our bearings back together and a tire on. Here's our hub with our first bearing. Put him on and there it goes. One step closer. There goes our bearing. So it's at this point in the video when we were doing this hub that I made a very critical error. And if you put this wheel bearing in backwards, in less than 20 miles, you will destroy your hubs, your spindles, your seals will all melt, and your tire will about be ready to fall off. Thought a long time about this and what to do and what to say. And at the end of the day, I made an error. That's pretty unfortunate. Learning experience. We all make mistakes, and the best thing you can do is learn from them. So I made a guess, I suppose, where I looked at the spindle and went, gets bigger as it goes in. Bearing should get bigger as it goes in. And I had watched a couple different videos and they didn't really show which way. So I made what I thought was an educated guess. Obviously, I wouldn't have put it in that way if I thought it was wrong. That'd be pretty dumb. So that guess was wrong. And basically, it destroyed our axle and set us back a little bit and we had to get a new one. So hopefully, I can save somebody else out there from doing this. Also, I think a lot of people have never seen or even thought that was possible and had no idea what could happen. So it's a little learning opportunity for the YouTube environment. So this is very important to put this in the correct way. So here we've got my bearing greased, and we will show the rest of the install here because it is going to be slightly different. Where when I put it in the other way, facing me, it did not go in quite as far. And so now it sits in there all the way. Now I can put my washer on, put the nut on. This part I don't really like in the procedure. I like a clear recipe to follow. What this basically says is go hand tight, and then what a lot of people do is go a quarter of a turn more. So we're here. I basically want to go to there, and then they back it back off. Basically, you just want to feel, see if there's any slop, and make sure it's not too tight. So there's no movement in there. About where we're at. And we put our keeper on. Then we're going to add some grease. Put our cap on. Eventually you'll be able to see this start coming out. So you fill this cavity up, you won't get any debris, any moisture in there. Supposedly, if you don't spin the wheel while you do this, you can blow the back seal out. I think that would apply more if you had an air grease gun. I don't think I can possibly pump fast enough to overpressurize that, but we don't need to find out. Now you can see the grease coming out. It's all full. We'll put our cap on. So an update to our wheel bearing repack and our axle replacement. We've now towed a couple thousand miles, in case you're wondering, on bearings that I repacked myself and on our new fresh axle. So what I've done does appear to work if you follow the correct way and put the bearing in correctly. Unfortunate incident, a little mistake that I've made. Hopefully I learned, and maybe I can keep you from doing something real bad to your trailer. An unfortunate situation, but we made the best of it. We have a new axle now, and this axle is actually cheaper than it is to buy parts for the 3,000 pound axle. So basically, when we go to replace brake parts on the other axle, we're just going to replace and put a brand new axle on, and we'll have two 3,500 pound axles, a little bit of an upgrade on our trailer. So all in all, we took the bad situation and made the best of it. We got a few thousand miles towing now underway. We're a little more scenic than Michigan here, and life is good. Thanks for watching.